This is Support is Sexy, episode 306, with Donna Beasley, founder of KaZoom Kids Books. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm happy to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. And you know, one of the things that I love about all of the women who come on the Support is Sexy podcast is the fact that they're at all different levels of experience. So we've had people on the show who are just launching their business and who are in the pitch phases. We have people who've come on before they start. We've had people who are serial entrepreneurs. We've had multimillionaires, all different ranges of business. And Donna Beasley, our guest today, is yet another example of someone at a different stage of her business. Donna has been an entrepreneur for 20 years, and now she is launching a new tech company that is really a disruptor in the children's publishing industry, and it's called KaZoom Kids Books. It's an interactive digital publishing company that features books for children 3 to 8 years old, and that has a mission of ensuring diverse images in kids' books. And Donna talks about the pain point that brought her to starting this new company, yet another new company for her. I found out about it, going to write a book for them. I'm putting it out there in the universe. I want to make that happen. I would love to write a kid's book, but I found out about it from a group that I'm in on Facebook, and I talked to Donna, and I just loved what she's up to. So I'm so happy to have her on the show to share her journey with you. Now, some of the things that Donna shares with us are how to persevere when it seems like everything is going wrong. And you know, as an entrepreneur, sometimes that happens. The power of keeping the faith and living the question. Realize that you make the best decisions that you can make at that time. The value of having a coach and joining an accelerator program. A smart reminder not to put up barriers where none exist. Also, why you need a sales plan, not just a marketing and business plan. Donna's top 3 tips for components of your sales plan, and how you can submit your book or illustrations to KaZoom Kids Books. I'm telling you, you're going to be excited about this, whether you have kids or not. So I'm so excited to share it with you. So now, without further ado, Donna Beasley. So Donna, thank you so much for joining us for Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. So first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Well, I've been a serial entrepreneur for the last really 20 years or so. So I guess that my interest really began when I was in advertising and working with a lot of businesses, and felt that it was something I could do. So when my former business partner suggested we start a record label in the record company, I was all in, and that was kind of the push I needed to get going.
Now, why a record label? Was that something that your business partner was already into, or was that something that your partner knew that you had some interest in?
Actually, he was a record industry executive. He called on radio. He's the guy that would get the records played on the radio stations. Uh-huh. And he worked for, really big companies, really big labels. And so, so he wanted to start his own thing. And he was also a musician. So he's a drummer. His brother was a guitar player. And they did a lot of stuff in the gospel music industry. And so he wanted to start a gospel record label, and didn't feel like he could do it himself, so he got partners to come in with him to launch the business. And we did it for about 8 years and had a great time.
Ooh, 8 years is a good investment of time.
Yes, it was a good little run. We made a lot of records, and one big accomplishment we made that I attribute to our company is that prior to us getting involved, record covers were really mediocre. not the level of quality that a regular R&B cover would be. But our background was in advertising, so we did everything with class and style and beauty. And so as a result of that, our album covers started to catch on, and companies, other companies, started treating gospel record music with the same creative design that they would do any other record. So.
Now, what other kinds of businesses did you have along the way? You mentioned it's been about 20 years now. So what other types of companies did you get involved in, or industries, I should say, did you get involved in?
I've been in publishing, and which is my favorite industry. I really feel at home in this industry. So I've done magazines. I've done. I was actually in the children's book business in a traditional way when I left the record business. That's what I did. I launched a publishing company. But I've also been a consultant, a marketing consultant. I did that for a lot of years, guiding other companies in terms of their marketing strategies. But predominantly, I've tried to stay in my wheelhouse, which is either marketing or publishing.
Now, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Chicago?
Yep, I'm from Chicago, grew up on the South Side. And,
yeah. You know Michelle and them?
Michelle who?
Michelle who? Michelle Obama.
Oh, yeah. I did not grow up near Michelle Obama, but of course, obviously, I live in Hyde Park, which is the neighborhood that the Obamas live in Chicago. And although I hear that they're not coming back, but we're not saying that yet.
Right. You're not claiming that yet.
Yeah, right.
So what was a young Donna like growing up in Chicago?
Well, I grew up fairly, middle-class community, hardworking parents. My father worked for the same manufacturing company for 35 years, and my mother worked for the city. And so they taught me the value of hard work. And, one of the things I always accredit my mother to is that whole level of confidence that I have. I always say that my superpowers are the fact that I can see an idea in my mind and I can make it happen. And I attribute that to my mother, because my mother used to tell me as I was growing up, never to say I can. I mean, she always said, you can do anything you want to when you put your mind to it. And, I took that to heart, and that's kind of, my philosophy for life. I can do it. If I can see it, I can believe it, then I can achieve it. So.
Would you say your mom is one of your greatest influences?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I've had quite a few influences, as a matter of fact. My faith, I think, has been a great influencer, because it's really helped me get through times when things are not going well. And as an entrepreneur, that happens quite often.
Right, exactly.
And I've been in some accelerator programs where I've had some wonderful coaches, and I'm an avid reader, so I've had learned a lot and gotten some good insight and info, really from people that I don't know, Tony Robbins and Brandon Bouchard, and people who I've read, Jim Rohn,
right, some of my favorites,
too. So I've gotten I consider those influencers too, because they influence my personal development.
Right. I think that's so important, too, for people listening to consider the idea that I even say sometimes, this person is a mentor in my head. I say that about Lisa Nichols. I talk about her all the time. Haven't met her, but I read all of her stuff. I get her emails. I just follow her. I love what she's doing and what she's creating. So you don't have to know the person personally for them to be a true influence in your life, or even a mentor in some way.
That's true.
Yes. So now you said that publishing is the industry that you really have fallen in love with, and it's the industry that you're in now. But when did the company that you run now, KaZoom Books, become that thing for you, or that next thing for you? Because it sounds like you always have that thing in the works. Right.
Well, I had actually been publishing a magazine that I loved. It was called Romance Travel Magazine. And my idea was that would be the way that I would close out my career. That I love to travel. I love to write about travel. And by having my own travel magazine, I would ensure that, I would be a travel writer and, from now on, I guess is what you could say. But I happened to be in a bookstore buying trying to buy some multicultural books for my, at the time, 5-year-old niece. And I was struck by the fact that I went to 4 different bookstores and none of them had one book that featured a child of color. Now, this is Chicago. I mean, I was really stunned by this. Mm-hmm. And I decided to do a little research. And I discovered that only 5% of children's books at that time had even featured children of color.
Right.
Well, I mentioned that I'd been in the children's book business, 20 years ago. It was the exact same statistic. So I was floored. It had not changed in 20 years.
Right.
And I thought, this is insane. This is not rocket science. And if we as a Black community and Latino community, if we want to change it, we're going to have to change it ourselves. The big publishing houses, obviously, they don't care enough. Or, maybe they're looking for something more than just, well, I don't know what they're looking for. But I felt that, with my background in publishing and advertising, that this was something that could be changed. And so I decided that, if somebody's going to change it, it's got to be the people who care about it. And I care about it. So I actually sold off my travel magazine to go and create greater diversity in children's literature. So that's what led me to where I am today.
Now, where does the name KaZoom come from?
It is a name that we really wanted a name that was fun, that seemed kid-like, that was fun to say, and that was memorable. Mm-hmm. And we did quite a bit of research on trying to come up with a name, but we liked KaZoom right off. It's fun, it's young, it's got a little power and punch to it, and it's memorable.
And a little alliteration, KaZoom Kids.
Exactly.
That's right. Now, when you say research, did you ask other kids what they thought about the name? Did you guys test it with your market?
We did. We tested it with kids. We tested it with moms. We tested it with, professional colleagues that specialize in branding. And there was a big debate about it now because some of the professionals felt that it didn't really describe what we did, that KaZoom was just, they were thinking that the possibility of, changing it so that it would
be very descriptive.
Right. But I felt KaZoom Kids Books is pretty darn descriptive, and it says what we do. And and nobody misunderstood. Everybody got it.
Yeah, it feels like, for me, it just felt like, fun, like you said. I think of colorful. And also, for some reason, KaZoom makes me feel like a rocket. Like something you say, like a kid might say, I don't know. But a kid might say a rocket goes KaZoom into the sky. It just feels young and fun.
Yes, absolutely. And so that was one of the things that we looked at. It was fun, and it is. And it's interesting that you said colorful, because all of our branding, as you know, we're preparing for our big launch in a few weeks, and all of our branding and everything, our tone is all about fun. Yep. So when you look at our branding, it should make you smile. It should make you feel good. It should make you feel proud. And because that's exactly how we're designing it to be.
And I think it also makes you feel, whether you're a kid or a mom or anyone just looking like I was, it makes you see, I should say, how inclusive it is. Because even when you were doing your Kickstarter campaign, I was looking at some of the advertisement or promotions around that, and it was always diverse children, decidedly diverse, as I like to say, or inclusive, and making sure that everybody was featured.
Right. Yeah, and then, and even then, in our Kickstarter campaign, we did a lot of fun things in our campaign. We didn't just say, Donna, we came up with this concept of put me in the book. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to create our campaign around what kids might say if they wanted to be in the book. And so, one of them was, if I was in the book, we had a little girl, she was dressed in African garb. And she said, if I was in the book, I would never be the princess. I'd always be the queen. Mm. We had one boy who was in a wheelchair. And he said, if I was in the book, I would get people to stop looking at my disability instead of seeing my superpowers, So those kinds of, upbeat comments from kids saying that, put me in the book. I want to see myself in a positive, uplifting light, and so that's kind of how we created the campaign.
That's right. And the campaign was successful, we should say, too, because your goal, I think it was 10,000, right? And you raised over 11,000.
That's correct. Yep. So it worked.
That's great. It worked. It sure did. How rewarding was it to receive that support from the overall community?
So, it was really great and necessary. I mean, I don't think that we would have been able to as successfully move forward. We still had quite a few expenses that had to be all centered around our technology. Mm-hmm. And so we really needed that money to really take to finish off our technology that makes this all work, because we're a interactive. We're not just a company. We're actually, our USP or our unique selling position is what makes us different, because there's a lot of digital publishing companies out there. But what makes our company different is that, one, we specialize only in multicultural children's books, number one. But number two, we are interactive. We are an interactive digital publishing company. Our books have sight, sound, motion, and animation. And it's a way to differentiate ourselves from companies that just do ebooks. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, we have to have a certain amount of technology that makes these books work when you download our app to your device.
And you can, two things. One, you can download the app on an Apple, right, iTunes, but also in Google Play.
Right. And so right now we're in beta, which means that for the next few weeks, you can try out the 2 of our books for free. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you have any problems, email me, let me know. Mm-hmm. But we're just testing to make sure that the technology works like it says it's going to work. We had a disaster last year. Mm. We were actually supposed to launch last September, and the technology that we used was coming from a company out of India. Mm-hmm. And we launched, and the technology was horrible, and it didn't work at all like they said it was going to work. The experience was so bad, just internal on the first day, that we never released it out to the public at all. We closed down the exact same day. Wow. Because we didn't want to come out with our customers having a bad experience. Right. I mean, it's hard to overcome that. And so what I've had to deal with then, I had to find another technology provider, and believe it or not, none exist in the United States. This was one of the most, incredible things to me, in that the Apple invented the technology. And because I had been a magazine publisher, it was commonplace to me, because I'd been doing a digital magazine with, through the Apple store, for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So it never occurred to me that Apple was the only company that had the kind of technology we needed to create this library of books. And so I was forced to go out of the country to try to find it. And the company in India proved to be, actually, they turned out to be, by the time I really figured out what was going on, they turned out to be a startup like us. Oh, and so they had overpromised their technology too, right? Exactly. They overpromised and underdelivered, and trying to get customers. And so that was terrible. And so the problem is there was no replacement. And so, it's very, when, I had gotten a lot of publicity. Mm-hmm. Everybody was excited about the product and us coming out, and I'd gotten so much support. And so now, you go 3 months, then 6 months, then 9 months. And as an entrepreneur, you have to persevere. You have to continue to believe in yourself, even when things are not going well, even when people start to doubt you can actually deliver. And to me, so that was kind of the biggest challenge between last September and this September, because, people start to to doubt you and to doubt your confidence, and, because they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Right. They just know you didn't come out on that date or something went wrong. They don't know all the details. And, and how can you not, you're doing children's books. How can you not be out? But they don't understand that there's a technological foundation on which we have to stand. And we're not just doing ebooks that I can put up in a Kindle store. Kindles do not play interactive ebooks. They don't have that kind of capacity to do that kind of a library like that. Mm-hmm. And so, this is where faith comes in.
That's
because
right.
I did not have a clue how to solve the problem, not a clue. But I had faith that there was a solution. And that that somehow that I would find a way to either work this out. And we looked at a couple of different options. One option was to make the books all videos, mm-hmm. Which I actually was leaning towards. But then, they always say prayer works. And, I just had to let that go and put it in God's hands. And I got a little divine. Yep, I got some divine intervention. Uh-huh. And one day I'm sipping coffee and reading. I was on my way to a conference, the children's book conference in Italy, and it's an international conference. And I was going over there to look at the potential for licensing multicultural books on an international level. So I had heard about licensing, and the book fair and the licensing show are combined. And so I just, I was going to it, and I happened to be sipping coffee one morning and reading about the different people that were going to be there. And this was one of the few years they were going to have this whole digital. In the digital industry was actually going to have its own section. So I was super excited about this. And I'm reading about a guy who, one of the presenters from this company, who is going to present this new product. Well, the new product turned out to be the exact product I needed. Mm. And so I reached out to the company immediately, and they got back to me, and sure enough, the product was out and ready. I could test it. And if I was coming to the conference, they said, wait and buy it there because they're going to have a discount at the conference. So that's exactly what I did. So.
Wow. I think that, well, one, thank you so much for sharing that part of the story, that part of the journey for sure. But also one of the things I want to make sure everyone remembers, I always say this, it's from an interview I did very early on with Patricia Moreno. She talks about, as you said, you don't always know the answer, but you have faith that you can find it. But also you have to live the question. And living the question of, okay, I know I can do this. I have faith that I will find it. You never know how it's going to come because you obviously didn't know exactly where to go for the answer. And then divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, it comes through the newspaper at a convention that you're going to anyway. So that step of remembering to keep the faith when everyone's doubting you, or even when you're doubting yourself, I'm sure you may have had, or I've had that, when something doesn't go right, then you start doubting yourself, but you still have to keep going and live the question.
The best piece of advice, and I think that this one piece of advice really changed my point of view on that. I really felt when it first happened that I had let my team down. I felt like I was not a good leader, and that, so I had all those like thoughts running through my mind.
Self-talk.
Right. And my coach said, cut that out. She said, are you crazy? You made the best decision at the time that you could make. Now you're going to make a better decision. She said, that's like saying that when you learn to ride a bike with tricycles, now that you learning how to ride on two wheels, that riding a tricycle was a waste of time. She said, that's not true. As entrepreneurs, we make the best decisions we can make at the time. If it doesn't work, then we make better decisions the next time. But you don't berate yourself when you made the best decision you could make at the time. And that really, once she put me on the path that, no, it's not that you're not a good leader. Is that you made the best decision at the time. They did not deliver. Mm-hmm. It's not that, and so that really changed my whole perspective on making decisions. Because you do, as entrepreneurs, you make the best decision at the time. Right. And sometimes it works out great. And sometimes, you have to take a step back and rethink your position. But you got to keep moving.
Got to keep moving. I think, too, another thing that's powerful in what you just said, too, is for everyone to realize that you've been in business or have been an entrepreneur in various businesses for 20 years, but you still have a coach, someone to work with you and help you get through times like that. So sometimes I think we think, too, oh, I've gotten to this point. I don't need support. I'm all about support around here, right? But I don't need support, or I don't need a coach. I don't need a mentor. But in the case as you are, you still have someone to support you.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell you another thing that I was not too proud to do. I actually, around the country, there's this whole, particularly in the tech industry that I'm in, that there's a whole industry of accelerator programs. Mm-hmm. So these are programs where you as an entrepreneur go for training, and they teach you and they help you get, you take 12 weeks of training, and they help you accelerate what you could have done if you had done, it might take you 3 years to do something, but if you go through the accelerator program, they teach you what you need to know in 12 weeks instead of 3 years.
Right.
And so, I went to a couple of accelerator programs that were extremely beneficial to me. And that mentor that I was just talking about was one of the mentors in that program. WeSTEM was the one that I most recently went to, which it's a women's program at 1871 for female tech companies.
That's there in Chicago?
Yes.
WeSTEM, okay.
Right. And I also went to a community one. So now they're popping up in Black and Latino communities. So I went to Sunshine Enterprises, which I went there just to really learn to refresh myself on the basics of things like sales and marketing and this is the fact that I've been in marketing for 20 years. Mm-hmm. But there's new things that happen. You have to stay abreast of what's going on. And so what else? I wanted to share just one thing that I got out of the accelerator program also that was really changed the way that I do business. And one of the things that in marketing, you're always creating these marketing plans. And one of my coaches in Sunshine used to say, you need a sales plan. So many people create these marketing plans and they're trying to do social media and they're trying to do, what are you doing to go out there and meet your customer? You need to get out this, you need to get out the door, get out from your computer. You need to go out and sell something. What is your sales plan? And, I'd never actually done a separate sales plan before. Mm-hmm. Sales was always part of my marketing plan. But changing my perspective where I needed a sales plan really, I think, is going to be critical to taking my business a lot further along than I would have if I had just come up with a marketing plan, to be honest.
Yes. Now, is there a place, and if not, I'm going to do some research for everyone listening so I can maybe find some templates or examples. Did you find anything online or any sort of public information about how to create a great sales plan, or did you sort of already know how to do it and just separate it from the marketing plan you have? And I asked again so I can provide resources for people listening.
I was in a class at the time, and so he literally taught us how to do a sales plan. But, if I were to sum it up, it would be, the three things that I would, is take your product to the customer. Don't, in marketing plans, we're always trying to generate leads and we're always trying to get, but take your product to the customer. So when I did my test, I actually went out to, conferences where women who I felt would have children ages 3 to 8, which is my target. Mm-hmm. I did conferences and I tested it with their children and I tested it with the women and I got feedback. I did a conference with the YWCA here in Chicago. So taking your product out to the customer and talking to real people, testing it with real people, sampling it with real people, so that's number one. Number two, identify who are the customers you can, like I want to sell to schools. So, which schools, and how are you going to approach the schools and what's the price you're going to pay for the school? Because that's a separate target than going after mothers. Mm-hmm. So that's the second thing, who are the customers? You got to identify them. And then, you've got to test your product with those customers. And then you've got to take the product, to the customers and then follow up. is one of the main things because, we collect a lot of email addresses when we do live events. But if you don't follow up, it was for nothing.
Right.
So you've got to follow up on those customers. You got to get them in your email, send them a newsletter, or, you've got to stay engaged with those customers or potential customers, leads, when you get them at the live show. So, so that's identify who they are, take your product to the customer, follow up. And, those I think those are the things that I remember from the class.
That's excellent. And do you think for the email part of it, did you have people say, for example, did you have a general or do you have just one general list, or did you make a segment list for, say, these are people who signed up at this particular event, just so you can cater it to them more specifically, or how are you going about it?
So in my case, I've got 3 different lists. There's the schools, because I'm going after, in my case, charter schools first, then public schools. There's the consumer, and I did not really separate my list per conference. Even though I have them noted that way, but when they go into our system, they still go into as potential customers. And then I have what you would call a influencers list. Right. And these are predominantly bloggers who are who care about multicultural children's books. Excellent. And so that's how I have my list divided. Now, once a potential customer becomes a potential lead becomes a customer, then they'll get on a separate list. Mm-hmm.
On your bloggers list, do you have podcasters also? Other than me?
Other than you? Only a couple. I've never, I didn't really think about going after
podcasters
as influencers. So that's a good tip,
Donna,
because I only have it. Yeah,
absolutely. I'll send you a list of some that I think would be great for you whenever you're ready to reach out to. But yeah, there's tons of podcasts out there, but some great ones I think would be interested in your product and what you're doing, and diverse podcasters who might be interested. But it's definitely an area to look at for everyone listening. If you're not a podcaster, but you're an entrepreneur or you're trying to get the word out, of course, blogs are still great, but podcasters are growing in popularity and people listen to them everywhere. There's studies showing just to how more engaged the audience tends to be, with going to the website after they hear it or buying the product after they hear it and that kind of thing. So for sure, I would add that to the list. When you start either hearing about some or you listen to some, add them to your list of people you want to reach out to. And most podcasters are looking for great guests, which of course you are.
Well, thank you. And it's interesting because I love podcasts.
Yeah,
I listen to podcasts all the time. So.
Right, and you don't think about being a guest, right? It's funny. I listen to a lot of them too, and some of the people who are guests on podcasts and some of the hosts too, but they talk about how powerful being a guest is for their business. So even some of the bigger podcast hosts that I listen to, they talk about their business really grows when they're a guest on another podcast because it exposes you to a different audience. Podcast audiences really trust their hosts. I mean, I could talk about it forever, but just as an example, for sure, you should think about that.
I definitely will.
Excellent. So for KaZoom Books, are you, you said you're launching in the next couple of weeks, which is fantastic. Are you looking for, do you have a date yet? Or
we don't have a date. It's funny that
fall.
It's late September. Okay. My tech provider is in Europe, and it turns out that in Europe, this part of Europe, they actually take the entire month of August off for vacation.
Right, which I love. I'm all for it.
They do this in Mexico and other countries. I'm like, so we literally, we have one major thing that we have to do to connect, and we just can't do it till they get back. So, so because we had originally planned to launch in August, and I didn't know until it was almost the 1st that they weren't going to be around for the month of August. So we had to push it back to September. So
it's still around back to school's time for some parts of the country.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep. So
now the books, as you mentioned, are they're very different because they're interactive, and I think kids are going to absolutely love them. And the audience or your target is ages 3 to 8, correct?
That's correct.
So what do you think? What do you think or I should say, as you mentioned, that statistic, about 5% of the children's book, including children of color. But having children's book with diverse characters is good for development of all children, right? That's something people don't realize.
Not only is it, I think that it's even more critical today where most parents are really raising global citizens. Mm-hmm. You know, the world is getting smaller and smaller. I mean, people are traveling all the time. My goddaughter works for Google, and she just did a presentation about the importance of diversity in Google, and she created this project that she wanted to implement in Brazil, and she got the right to do it.
Wow.
I mean, just think about that, you know, and, you know, she's only been at Google, I think, 18 months.
Wow.
So my point being that you don't know where your child is going to go in terms of working in this global environment that we live in today. And so, you know, parents are looking to raise global citizens. And, you know, my niece, the same niece that I was trying to buy children's books for, is, you know, becoming fluent in Spanish. She goes to a Spanish language school. So, because her mother wanted her to be bilingual. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you know, I think a lot of parents have a different point of view on, you know, on this subject. And you're right. And it doesn't matter what race or nationality a child might be. When they see diverse characters in a book, it helps them understand how other people live. It helps them to feel good about their own self-esteem. And it gives them a sense of, you know, different communities and the way different people interact. And then a lot of our books are just fun to read. Mm-hmm. You know, they're fun. They feature children, so they're fun to read, and they can relate to them. And so, you know, it's certainly not books that any child wouldn't enjoy reading. But I was just going to say, but we do focus on making sure that our books feature multicultural characters. And it's not that we never have a book with animals in them, but in our books, you know, Zigzag Zoo, which is one of the books that's available for free, you know, the people that work at the zoo are all multicultural, mm-hmm. or, you know, Black or Latino. And so we have a variety of books, you know, that we target.
And you also wrote one or if not more, but definitely one of the books, right? Kaysen's Kite, is it?
Yes, I did write Kaysen's Kite, and I have a couple of more that are coming out in time for Black History Month.
That's exciting.
In February. But I've reached out. These books are not, think about this, Elayne. These books were not written because the community could not get into the industry. So children's book writers and illustrators who wanted to break into the field could not get into the field because the large publishing companies, which are like down to like only 5 now, did not recruit or hire these kinds of writers and illustrators. And so what we're doing is actually helping these writers and illustrators get into the field of children's books. And it's really a very personally rewarding experience to see some of these. These are people from the community. Mm-hmm. You know, we had to go out into the community and ask, you know, my friends, my neighbors, people you know, do you know anybody who wants to write children's books? So these books come out of the community. They were written by people in the community, you know, so we're by the community, for the community. Our artists and illustrators not only from the community, but in diverse communities throughout the world. So it is without people contributing, this would not be possible.
Right. So it's so interesting. You're really creating a movement in addition to the children's books. You're shifting it, disrupting an industry, creating a movement, bringing people together, doing so much with the project that started from a pain point of not being able to find what you needed for your niece. Absolutely. And, you know, that was a problem that had to be solved. And if there aren't any books, who's going to write these books? That's
you
right.
know? And, you know, so we do some training, you know, we work with top-notch editors because, you know, first-time authors, it's difficult to get a book that is, you know, publishable quality. Mm-hmm. but we work with a lot of authors that have potential, and so it's working out great, really.
Great, and I'm still excited about writing my book, Donna. It's coming.
All right.
It's coming.
We'll be here whenever you're ready.
Excellent. Now, are you, speaking of the writers from the community overall, are you currently looking for additional writers and stories for, our sisters listening in the podcast audience who might be interested?
Oh, I certainly am. You can certainly come to our website, and you can email me directly. We are looking for continuous stories because our business model. We are producing 2 books a month, so we're launching with 8 titles, and we're producing 2 titles a month every month. So even in our first year, that's 30 titles.
Wow!
So that's a lot of books. But so obviously we need writers and illustrators to write and illustrate these books. So we're always on the lookout for talented artists and talented writers.
And it's KaZoom, KaZoom, kidsbooks.com for everybody listening.
Correct.
Excellent. So what would you say, what's the process then for the submissions? Is it just going to the website and people send in their ideas, or are you looking for an actual manuscript, or what works for you?
Well, I think people should contact me first to let me know that they have something. And because there's no point in wasting people's time because, again, we only do ages 3 to 8. We don't do books that do not feature actually multicultural characters. And like I said, it's not that your book cannot have an animal or anything like that in it. It can, but it cannot be animals only. So it's we're looking for creative ideas, things like particularly in areas autism is one of the questions I get all the time is, can't you do some books that feature autism kids? I've gotten a request to do books that feature a deaf child because apparently they don't get to be in children's books very often. And I always reply the same way. I can publish them, but you got to find somebody from those communities that are willing to write them. So if you have a deaf child and you want to write a book about that experience that would be beneficial to a child, then, do it. We've got an open door policy. You don't have to have had experience before. We'll help guide you if the concept is good. So,
and you have editors, illustrators, and all of those things there.
Exactly. Just so you don't have to do any of that stuff, to make it easy. So if you have an idea, you can just email me at Donna@KaZoomKidsBooks.com. And people do it. And, I've gotten some great stories. We have writers that we're working with that I've also gotten some established writers who are interested because they're interested in the cause and the movement to create this diversity in children's literature. It's they want to help. And so that's been rewarding, too, because when a top-notch illustrator, for example, who we normally could not afford, might be willing to work with a group like KaZoom Kids Book, a startup like us, it's very personally rewarding to know that there are people out in the community that care.
Absolutely. And then how does it work for writers, illustrators, and designers with the sale of the book or the project? Does everybody get a certain percentage, or how do you, just for people listening to know how that works for you? Or are you paying people a flat fee?
So we pay a flat fee plus royalty because we pay the flat fee for the digital rights because we don't pay per download. We pay a flat fee, but we do pay a royalty for printed books because some of our most popular titles we will be printing because for our target audience of ages 3 to 8, the printed book is still important. Mothers still like to read to their children and they want the real thing. So as we move into 2018, some of our books will be printed.
Excellent. Let's take a quick break to thank our sponsors. So if you're a solopreneur like me, you probably live by your schedule. You talk to people all around the world, from clients to freelancers. For me, podcast interviews that I have to set up. So my schedule means everything. And that is why I use Acuity Scheduling. Acuity has been my savior for the past year. It helps me, honestly, keep my sanity. And I was excited to get the chance to talk to Kristen Barber, Customer Happiness Specialist at Acuity, about just how the company goes about keeping their customers sane and happy.
So Acuity Scheduling is an online scheduling software program really focused on helping small businesses focus on what matters to them. So we take a lot of the day-to-day minutia off of your hands. We set it up so that you can have all of your clients self-schedule in, manage their appointments, reschedule, cancel if something comes up. You didn't have to call them and do this awkward back and forth dance of what date and time work for you. If anything changes, they don't need to call and let you know. They can just handle that all on your own and you're kept up to date. And it takes so much work off your plate so that you can focus on either building your business up with other aspects that a scheduling program can't handle, or go enjoy yourself.
And as a special offer for Support is Sexy listeners, Acuity Scheduling is offering a 45-day free trial just for you. So go to acuityscheduling.com/sexy. Again, that's ACUITY scheduling.com/sexy. And you can take advantage of any plan they have there for 45 days. At the end of that time, whatever plan you want to continue with, you can do that, or you can stick with the free plan. acuityscheduling.com/sexy.
We'll be keeping an eye out for you sexy ladies.
And now, back to the show. So what would you say, Donna, entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
I would say that the most important thing that I've learned about myself is the importance of persevering, even in the face of adversity, but also that there is help out there. That you don't have to, if you don't understand it, if you can't do it, if you've got a technology problem, that there are actually people who are willing to help you. And so not to be embarrassed to help. The other thing that I personally had to get over is ageism, because I'm into this tech industry, and I walk into the tech environment, and everybody there is, a millennial, and I'm not. So and when I first started this journey, I had someone that bothered me. I would enter a room and I'm like, oh my goodness, not only am I the only, black person here, but I'm also the oldest person here. But what I've learned is that none of that matters, that nobody's judging me on those criteria, that, nobody, that I may be putting that wall between me and another person, or between me and my goal, that nobody put that wall there. And once I realized that, and I let that go, I freed myself from worrying about whether or not I was, the only black person in the room, or the only, or the oldest person in the room. Once I let that go, I found that I was able to build better relationships with all those other people that were in the room. And so I had to learn about myself to not put barriers that don't really exist just because of the way how it's been historically, or how, I might have been treated by one person, but that's not all the people in the room. That I may be caring more about that than anybody in the room. So
right. And sort of getting out of your own way mentally, right? Yeah,
because we tell ourselves these things, it's that self-talk.
Right.
And but like I said, by and large, everybody's treated me just wonderfully well. So I had to finally let that go, that it was all in my own head. And that, and it's not that, some of this doesn't exist. There's no question it does. But it's how we interpret it. If I walk in a room and I'm confident and I'm moving forward like it don't exist, then it ain't going to exist for me. But if I walk in that room and I panic and I start to worry about what, how hard is it going to be, well, then it's going to be hard. So once, I had to change my focus on that. And, and taught me as a woman, as a baby boomer, that, you still, none of those things matter except what we make them matter. So I started changing my story, and I didn't have a problem anymore. So
there you go. So in closing, Donna, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Ooh, one person.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, I'd have to go back to my mother and her advice about if you can do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it. I think that's the most essential advice that I've ever received. And, and I think that's true of most people, that we can, once we decide what it is that we want out of life, life is happy to give it to us.
So Donna, then tell us now, what can we do or how can we support you? Tell us your website, social media again, anything else that you want us to know about supporting KaZoom Kids Books before it comes out, or even if someone hears this after it comes out.
So, certainly visit our site, KaZoomKidsBooks.com. Download our app. You can test it out for free for the next couple of weeks. Once we launch, it will no longer be free. But try out the books, the interactive books. If you have any suggestion, if you know a writer, if you know an illustrator, please give them my email, Donna@KaZoomKidsBooks.com. And obviously, we would love for you to become a member, take out a subscription if for your own family. If not your family, maybe a niece, nephew, grandchild. Hopefully. You will help support not only KaZoom Kids Books, but all the writers and illustrators and book designers that make these books happen. It's quite an operation.
Quite an operation. And it's an annual membership for, is it $75 for the year or something like that? I saw?
That's right. That's $75 for the year. And like I said, we're launching with 8 books, and you'll get 2 additional titles every month. So you'll have 30 titles for that. It comes out to, I think, like $3 a book.
That's great. I love it. Donna, thank you so much. I'm so glad technology allowed us to make this happen. We got it worked out.
Yes, we did.
Excellent. So now before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Just follow your passion. I think that, and don't be afraid to pivot. I mentioned that I started out really wanting to be a magazine publisher and travel writer, and but this is a bigger, better opportunity, and it is more significant to our community as a company. It solves a problem, there's a real need in the community, and so I pivoted. And so don't be afraid to pivot when something's not going right. And you can find a better way. There's no shame in, taking a different path when it's before you.
Excellent. Donna, thank you so much. Hold on just a second. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Donna Beasley. For more, to find out about Donna and about KaZoom Kids Books, go to supportissexypodcast.com and just search Donna, Donna. Her show notes page will pop up with all of the resources and links of ways to get in touch with her. That's supportissexypodcast.com and just search Donna. Now, whether this is your first time listening or you've been listening forever, I appreciate you and so happy to have you here. What I'd love for you to do is make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. I love that so many of you are posting on social media and getting in touch with me, letting me know that you're binge listening. That's fantastic. Keep doing that. But also make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss any new episodes. Got them coming out for you pretty regularly, and I don't want you to miss a thing. So make sure you subscribe. And if you love the show, please do leave us a review. I always say I love a 5-star review. That really helps the show, but any feedback is appreciated. So wherever you're listening, please take just a minute to leave me a review. I'd love to hear from you. All right, so thank you again so much for being here. And until next time, you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.